Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to make an envelope border. We can just leave all the tassels and have a lovely fringed piece of work, but because standard mosaic crochet works one side only, you do end up with all of these ends and it's not for everybody. So I've gone through and I've trimmed all of these after tying them, so I'm just going to do the last two. I'm just going to do a double knot on each of those just to make sure they're doubly secure, and then we'll trim those ones off too. And that's going to enable us to have an envelope border to hide them, but it's not going to be too bulky in theory. So trim those two off. Right, so for the envelope border, this piece of material was made using a 4mm hook. I'm actually going to upsize to a 5mm just for the start because we need the slip stitches to be loose. We're actually going to work them twice over. So grab your yarn. When you start, it's quite often a good idea to use a very different colour yarn so you can see it, but I'm just going to use the same colour, and I'm going to start up on this, actually I'll start up on the middle of the front, and I'm just going to put my hook in one row below. I'm going to put my slip knot on my hook and I'm going to pull it through, and we're going to do just some slip stitches, but they're going to be surface slip stitches. So I'm just going to work into the next one, pull the yarn back and pull it through, and I'm going to do that all the way down, and I'm going to make sure that this is nice and loose. So when you're working along the top or the bottom, it's quite straightforward. You can see fairly clearly where you're going to put your hook. When we come down the sides, we're going to have to use our judgment as to where those go, but not get too close to the edge, because if you've done the mosaic, you'll know that it's just got a little knot on the end and we don't want that to work loose. Okay, so unlike a normal border, I don't need to make any more chains into the corner. I'm just going to curve it round. So I'm going to turn my work. And those ends can be a little bit annoying, but we're just going to ignore them. And I'm just going to come in a little bit away from the edge, and I'm just going to make those slip stitches all the way down fairly evenly. You want to keep the same line as you go down, or else you'll end up with a wonky border. Okay, remember we're going to keep these nice and loose. So you can see how that's coming. If anything, I'm maybe going a little bit too far towards the edge. I'm going to keep with that line. I think I've maybe come a little bit too close to the edge there, so I'm just going to pull those out and just take it in a little bit, because the border can cover that, and it's more important that we get it fairly straight. So still keeping them nice and loose, working them all the way down. So we can see how that's working. So I'm going to continue all the way down this edge, down the side, back up the other edge, and meet at the top here. So I'll see you back when I've got that far, rather than boring you through all my slip stitches. Okay, so I've come all the way round and I've just joined it, pulled it back through and done a little knot with my starting tail. Across the front, you can see it's really easy to see all of these slip stitches, but on the back, it's not so easy. We can see them down the sides when it's a different colour, and that's why I said to you, definitely try and do this bit with a different colour. Okay, I'm going to start by just doing some double crochets. You could do trebles if you wanted to grow quicker. The choice is really yours. And I'm going to join in one of these slip stitches with a standing double. I'm then going to pick up each of the slip stitches and put a double crochet in. So as with crochet, this is the hardest bit because we're still starting. So that's the last one of this side. But tricky. Nails definitely help. Then this one here is my corner, so I'm going to put 3 doubles in that one just to get me round the corner. Missed that one completely. And I can turn my work, and I'm now going to find my slip stitches all the way down the side. So do that, 3 in the corners, and pick up the slip stitch all the way along, and I'll see you back at the end ready for the next row. Okay, so I've got all the way around with my doubles. I'm just going to push that one out, slip stitch in, and then I'm going to work at least 1 round of trebles into each of those doubles, so it'll be easier from here on. And when I get to the corner, you can either work round all of the trebles as we did. There's my first one. So in my second one, I'm going to pop a treble, a chain 1 and a treble. So how you deal with the corners really comes down to personal preference. And then treble all the way down the side. So if I lay that front ways, you can start seeing that this is building out the back, and I've got somewhere for my tails to sit. So I'll need to do another round on top of that just to get a bit more height, because I don't want all my ends to be really, really scrunched up. So go around as many times as you need, and then we'll have a look at the front and see how they actually join up. Okay, so I've just come to the end of my 3rd row. I've done the slip stitches, then 1 row of doubles and 2 rows of trebles. And I've just cut off my yarn, ready to do an invisible join. Okay, and I'm just going to fasten it probably there, because it's going to sit inside the envelope. We don't have to worry too much about it. We'll hide that away. Perfect. Right, okay, so my front now looks really messy, and my back is looking quite neat. So now we've finished the back, and you can see how far I've come up. There it is. So it's just sitting below the ends, but the ends are all going to sit nicely in that envelope. And I'm now going to do the front. So I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to work my double crochets, then 2 rows of trebles. And what we do for this one is we start, we only pick up 1 of the loops, and that will give me a really, really neat line across my work. So I'm going to start it with a standing double, exactly as I did before. I'll bring this up here. I'm just going to pick up the top loop to work my first one. There we go. And then I'm going to pick up that top loop all the way across, and I'm going to do my corners the same. So with my corners on my first row, when I was doing my doubles, I did 3 doubles. Then on my second row, when I started with my trebles, I did treble, chain 1, treble. And on my last row, I actually ended up, because it sat flatter, doing 2 trebles, chain 1, 2 trebles. So you can be pretty flexible with that. Okay, so there's my third one. And then I'm going to work down the other side. Now the ends do get a little bit in the way. You just have to push them out the way. And just pick up the top loop and work your doubles all the way down. Okay, so exactly the same process for the front as we did for the back. We're going to do a row of doubles, then we're going to pick up and do 2 rows of trebles. So I'll see you at the end of the second row of trebles and we'll look at how we actually join them together. Okay, so we've come all the way round. I've got my double, 2 rows of treble on both the back and the front. I've not cut off, so I've just joined that row and I've counted back from my corner space to make sure I line up. Okay, that's what this little bit of thread is hanging out. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to chain 1. Right, I'm going to go through the front and then I'm going to pick up that marked stitch and I'm going to make a double crochet and then pick up the next, going through all the loops, and I'm just doubling all the way. And this is just going to create a fine seam across the top of your work. And any of those pesky ends will be encased within this beautiful envelope border. I've worked this yarn too many times, it's splitting a bit. Bear with me. Okay, so as we come round the corner and then got the part with all of the first side with all the ends. So just make sure that you tuck them in a bit so you don't catch them and pull them back through. And try and make sure that you're working the same stitches on both sides, or else you'll end up going wonky and you'll have excess from either the back or the front. And that's all we're going to do. So if I pull up a loop, you can see it. It's just very, very smooth. It's obviously a little bit more raised than the centre part of the mosaic. Could be used for any blankets that you were doing a lot of colour changing. You're just going to put this envelope border on and tuck all of your ends inside it. And it's pretty beautiful, both sides. So I hope you found that helpful, and you're going to enjoy making lots of envelope borders and after you've done lots of mosaic crochet. And I'll see you soon.